Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with an overwhelming sense of dread, your heart pounding, feeling as though something unseen was pressing down upon you? What if I told you that the position you sleep in could be opening doorway between your consciousness and forces that have haunted humanity since before recorded history? Type "I'm awakening" in the comments if you're ready to discover what they've been hiding from you, and don't forget to hit that like button, because this knowledge has been suppressed for nearly 2,000 years. Tonight, you're going to learn something that will forever change how you close your eyes to sleep. Buried within the ancient teachings of early Christian mystics, hidden in texts that were deliberately excluded from the Bible, lies a warning so disturbing that it was erased from common knowledge. Jesus himself spoke of the vulnerable hours between waking and sleeping, those twilight moments when your soul loosens its grip on your physical form. He warned his closest disciples about the archons, parasitic entities that exist in the shadows of human consciousness, feeding on fear, doubt, and spiritual energy. And he revealed something shocking: that certain sleeping positions create energetic vulnerabilities, cracks in your spiritual armor through which these beings can reach you. This isn't metaphor. This isn't symbolism. The Gnostic texts, discovered in clay jars in the Egyptian desert, describe these encounters with chilling precision. They speak of the archons as reality's hidden predators, beings who exist just beyond the veil of ordinary perception, waiting for moments when our defenses are down. And there is no moment when you are more defenseless than when you sleep. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand why you've had those inexplicable nightmares. Those nights when you felt paralyzed, those mornings when you woke up more exhausted than when you went to bed. You're going to learn which sleeping position Jesus specifically warned against, and more importantly, you're going to discover how to protect yourself. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn could be the key to reclaiming your spiritual sovereignty. To understand this forbidden knowledge, we must journey back to a time when Christianity was not yet the organized religion you know today. In the 1st and 2nd centuries after Christ's death, there existed numerous Christian sects, each preserving different aspects of Jesus' teachings. Among the most mysterious were the Gnostics, spiritual seekers who claimed to possess secret knowledge directly transmitted from Jesus to his inner circle. The word gnosis itself means direct, experiential knowledge of the divine, the kind of wisdom that transforms rather than merely informs. In 1945, near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, a farmer digging for fertilizer unearthed an earthenware jar containing 13 leather-bound codices. Inside these ancient books were texts that had been hidden for over 16 centuries, gospels and teachings that the early church had deemed too dangerous for common believers. Among these was the secret book of John, the hypostasis of the Archons, and the Gospel of Philip. These texts revealed a cosmology far stranger and more complex than mainstream Christianity had preserved. They spoke of the Archons. The Archons, according to these ancient Gnostic teachings, are non-physical entities created by a false god, a being the Gnostics called the demiurge. This false deity, operating under the delusion of its own supremacy, fashioned the material world as a prison for human souls. The Archons serve as its jailers and enforcers, feeding upon human suffering, ignorance, and spiritual sleep. But here's what will make your skin crawl. These beings cannot create. They can only imitate, distort, and parasitize. They exist in a realm the Gnostics called the kenoma, the void between the material and the truly divine. Jesus, in the Gnostic understanding, was not merely a teacher of morality. He was a revealer of hidden realities, one who came to awaken humanity from a slumber so deep that most people don't even realize they're asleep. In the Gospel of Thomas, discovered among the Nag Hammadi texts, Jesus says, "If they say to you, 'Where have you come from?' say to them, 'We have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being by itself.' If they say to you, 'Is it you?' say, 'We are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father.'" This passage takes on chilling new meaning when you understand who they are. The archons who question souls in the vulnerable state between life and death, between waking and sleeping. The early church fathers were terrified of these teachings, not because they were false, but because they were too true, too empowering. If people understood that hostile entities could access their consciousness during sleep, they might also understand how to defend themselves, how to awaken fully. The Fourth Council of Constantinople, in 869 to 870 AD, went so far as to abolish the concept of the spirit as separate from the soul, effectively reducing human consciousness to just body and soul, eliminating the very part of us that could perceive and resist the archons. This wasn't theology. It was a strategic dimming of human awareness. In the apocryphal text known as the Pistis Sophia, Jesus instructs his disciples about the receivers and rulers that attempt to steal the light from souls. He describes in precise detail how these beings operate during the hours of darkness, how they seek entry through specific vulnerabilities in the human energy field. And among the most disturbing revelations was this: the position of the physical body during sleep creates corresponding positions in the subtle energy body, and some of these positions are catastrophically vulnerable. The Essenes, the Jewish mystical community that many scholars believe Jesus was connected to, had elaborate sleep rituals. They understood something that modern science is only beginning to rediscover, that sleep is not mere unconsciousness, but a journey into other dimensions of reality. The Zohar, the foundational work of Jewish mysticism, states that during sleep, the soul ascends to receive instruction from higher realms. But it also warns that the path of ascension is fraught with danger, that there are shells and husks, the Qliphoth in Kabbalistic terms, equivalent to the archons, that seek to intercept the traveling soul. What you're beginning to understand is that this knowledge isn't ancient superstition. It's a sophisticated spiritual technology that has been systematically suppressed. The question that should be burning in your mind right now is, what exactly did Jesus reveal about sleep positions? And why was it so dangerous that it had to be hidden for 2 millennia? Before we reveal the specific sleeping position Jesus warned against, you need to understand the mechanics of what happens to your consciousness when you sleep. Modern science tells us that sleep is a restorative process, a time when the brain consolidates memories and the body repairs itself. But this is only the surface truth, the material explanation for a profoundly spiritual phenomenon. The ancient mystics knew something that neuroscience is only beginning to glimpse, that during sleep, you are not simply unconscious. You are elsewhere. Think of your physical body as a house and your consciousness as the inhabitant. During waking hours, you're fully present in every room, the lights are on, the doors are locked. But when you sleep, you begin to withdraw. Your consciousness loosens its grip on the physical form and begins to travel through what the Gnostics called the aeons, layers of reality that exist beyond ordinary perception. This isn't imagination. This is the actual mechanism behind dreams, astral projection, and those strange moments of sleep paralysis that feel more real than reality itself. Your energy body, what the Hindus call the subtle body, or pranamaya kosha, extends beyond your physical form. It has 7 major centers, the chakras, which function as doorways between the material and spiritual dimensions. When you're awake and conscious, your will keeps these doorways regulated, open to higher influences and closed to lower ones. But sleep changes everything. As your conscious mind dims, these energy centers begin to operate automatically, based on your habitual patterns, your unresolved traumas, your unconscious beliefs. And this is where the danger enters. The Archons, according to the secret book of John, cannot force their way into a protected consciousness. They operate through deception, through exploiting weaknesses, through finding the cracks in your spiritual armor. Jesus taught his disciples that these entities are like thieves in the night, a phrase that carries literal as well as metaphorical weight. They wait for the moments when your awareness is diminished, when your defenses are down. And there is no moment more vulnerable than the transition into deep sleep. Now, here's where it becomes specific, where ancient wisdom meets practical reality. Your physical sleeping position directly affects the flow of energy through your subtle body. The spine is not merely a stack of bones protecting your nervous system. It's the central channel through which life force, what the yogis call prana, or the Chinese call chai, flows through your entire being. When your spine is aligned in certain ways, energy flows freely. When it's positioned in other ways, blockages occur, stagnation happens, and vulnerabilities emerge. The Archons, existing as they do in the lower astral dimensions, are attracted to specific energetic signatures: fear, anger, shame, and most powerfully, spiritual unconsciousness. They're drawn to human beings the way moths are drawn to flame, except in this case, we are the light they seek to consume. The Gnostic texts describe them as having an insatiable hunger for the divine spark that exists within every human soul. They cannot create this light themselves, so they must feed parasitically on those who have it, but don't know how to protect it. Jesus spoke to his inner circle about the watchers and the rulers of darkness. In the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, another Nag Hammadi text, Mary recounts a vision where the soul must pass through realms controlled by 7 powers: darkness, desire, ignorance, fear of death, kingdom of the flesh, foolish wisdom, and wrathful wisdom. Each of these represents not just psychological states, but actual entities, thought forms that have gained terrible independence through millennia of human unconsciousness feeding them. And they are most active during the hours when humanity sleeps. The specific sleeping position that Jesus warned against creates a perfect storm of vulnerability. It simultaneously compresses the solar plexus chakra, your center of personal power and will, while opening the crown chakra without the protection of conscious awareness. Imagine leaving the front door of your house wide open while you're deeply asleep in the basement, unable to hear intruders entering. This is the energetic equivalent of what happens. This position is sleeping flat on your back, with your arms extended away from your body, particularly with palms facing upward. In this configuration, you form what occultists recognize as a receptive pentagram. Your head, 2 arms, and 2 legs creating 5 points of openness. The upward-facing palms, which in conscious spiritual practice are used to receive divine energy, become, during unconscious sleep, like satellite dishes, picking up whatever signals are broadcasting in the lower astral frequencies. Your solar plexus, compressed by the position of your spine, cannot generate the protective field of personal will that would normally filter these energies. The Essene texts describe this position as the posture of the dead, and they explicitly forbade it among their initiates. The ancient Egyptians, who had their own profound understanding of sleep and death as related phenomena, positioned their deceased in this exact manner during mummification, because it facilitated the soul's departure from the body. Do you see the connection? The position that helps the soul leave during death is catastrophically vulnerable during sleep, when you want the soul to remain tethered but traveling safely. Now that you understand the mechanics of vulnerability, we must go deeper into what actually happens during an archon attack, because recognizing the signs is the first step toward protection. These experiences have been documented across every culture and every era of human history, though they're called by different names. The old hag phenomenon, shadow people encounters, demonic oppression, alien abduction experiences. The terminology changes, but the core experience remains eerily consistent, suggesting something objectively real rather than mere cultural projection. The attack typically begins in that twilight zone between waking and sleeping, what researchers call the hypnagogic state. You might feel a sudden pressure on your chest, as if an invisible weight has settled upon you. Your body becomes paralyzed. Sleep paralysis, the scientists call it, explaining it away as a neurological glitch where your mind wakes before your body. But the mystics knew differently. This paralysis occurs because the archon is interacting with your astral body, which is still partially merged with your physical form. The sensation of pressure isn't imagined. It's the energetic signature of a parasitic entity attempting to create a feeding connection. Victims universally report a presence in the room, often perceived in peripheral vision as a dark silhouette or shadow figure. Some see grotesque faces, others feel malevolent intelligence without visual form. The Gnostic texts describe the archons as appearing in hideous forms, specifically designed to generate fear, because fear is the emotion that most powerfully loosens your grip on your own energy. Fear makes you contract, makes you want to flee your own body. And that's exactly the response they're engineering. When you abandon your body in terror, even momentarily, they can slip into the gap you've created. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. The archons don't just feed on your energy in the moment. They implant thought forms, what we might call negative programs or limiting beliefs, directly into your subconscious mind while your conscious defenses are overwhelmed. This is why people who experience repeated sleep attacks often develop depression, anxiety disorders, creative blocks, and a pervasive sense of being watched or not being alone even during waking hours. The parasitic connection, once established, can persist. The Gospel of Philip contains a cryptic passage that suddenly makes terrible sense. Those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. If they do not first receive the resurrection while they live, when they die, they will receive nothing. This isn't talking about physical death. It's describing the death-like state of spiritual unconsciousness that most people live in perpetually, making them vulnerable to these entities not just during sleep, but throughout their entire lives. The resurrection while alive is the awakening of conscious awareness, the reclaiming of your spiritual sovereignty. But there's a specific detail about the sleeping position that makes the vulnerability even more pronounced, something that Jesus revealed only to his most trusted disciples. When you sleep on your back with arms extended, you create what the Kabbalists call a breaking of the vessels, a disruption in the natural circulation of energy through your system. Normally, energy flows in a circuit, up the back of the spine, over the crown, down the front of the body, completing a protected loop. This is why ancient meditation traditions emphasize tongue position. Touching the tongue to the roof of the mouth completes this circuit electrically. In the vulnerable sleeping position, this circuit breaks. Energy leaks from your palms and the crown of your head without being replenished, creating an energetic vacuum. The archons, existing in a state of perpetual hunger, are drawn to this vacuum the way air rushes into a depressurized chamber. They don't even need to break in. You've essentially created a suction that pulls them toward you. The ancient texts describe them as unable to resist the call of the open vessel. There's another layer that's rarely discussed, even in esoteric circles. The position you sleep in doesn't just affect you in the present moment. It creates patterns in your subtle body that persist across time. Every night you sleep in the vulnerable position, you're etching deeper grooves in your energetic anatomy, making it easier for entities to find you, recognize you, return to you. It's like leaving the same window unlocked every night. Eventually, every thief in the neighborhood knows which house is easy pickings. The pistis. Sophia describes how the archons have receivers stationed at different levels of reality, waiting to intercept souls. These aren't metaphors. They're describing an actual predatory infrastructure in the invisible dimensions. When you sleep in the open position repeatedly, you essentially register yourself in their system. You become a known resource. This explains why some people experience these attacks once and never again, while others are plagued by them for years or even lifetimes. It's not random. It's the result of energetic habits that have made them visible and accessible to these entities. Jesus taught that the prince of this world has nothing in me, meaning that the ruler of the archons, the demiurge itself, could find no point of entry, no resonance, no vulnerability in his consciousness. This is the state of perfect protection, achieved through continuous awareness and proper alignment with divine source. But for most humans, still trapped in patterns of unconsciousness, practical techniques are necessary, and the first, most fundamental technique is so simple that it seems almost absurd. Change how you sleep. The early Christian mystics had a specific prayer they would recite before sleep. And it wasn't the simple, "Now I lay me down to sleep," that survived into modern times. The original prayer, preserved in fragmentary form in the Oxyrhynchus papyri, directly invoked protection from the rulers of darkness and their receivers who walk the night. It acknowledged the reality of the threat and actively called upon higher powers for protection. But prayer alone wasn't enough. It had to be combined with proper physical positioning and conscious intention. What you're beginning to realize is that spirituality isn't just about positive thinking or feeling good. It's about understanding the actual mechanics of consciousness, energy, and the invisible dimensions that interpenetrate our reality. The archons are real. The vulnerability is real. The attacks are real. And the protection, which we're about to explore, is equally real. Now we arrive at the most crucial part, what you can actually do tonight to protect yourself from these incursions. This isn't theory anymore. This is practical spiritual technology that has been tested across millennia, techniques that Jesus himself taught to those who were ready to hear them. The beauty of this knowledge is its simplicity. You don't need special tools. You don't need years of training. You need only awareness and the willingness to change your habits. The first and most immediate action is to change your sleeping position. The protective posture that the Archons taught, that yogis have practiced for thousands of years, is sleeping on your right side with your knees slightly bent. This position accomplishes several critical things simultaneously. It keeps your spine in natural alignment, allowing energy to flow freely through the central channel without blockage or leakage. Your arms should be drawn in close to your body, either folded across your chest or tucked under your head, creating a closed circuit rather than an open, receptive configuration. But here's the deeper significance that most people miss. Sleeping on your right side has a specific effect on your breath and energy channels. In yogic science, you have two primary energy channels that run alongside the spine. The Ida on the left, associated with lunar, receptive, cooling energy, and the Pingala on the right, associated with solar, projective, warming energy. When you sleep on your right side, you naturally activate the left nostril, which corresponds to the Ida channel. This creates a gentle, receptive state that's open to higher spiritual influences, while remaining closed to lower astral entities. It's the difference between opening your door to invited guests versus leaving it open to whoever passes by. The ancient texts are explicit about this. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, written in the 15th century but preserving much older teachings, it states that the wise yogi should always sleep on his right side. The reason given is that it promotes longevity and spiritual development, but the hidden teaching is about protection. The left nostril breathing stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, creating a state of calm awareness even during sleep, making it much more difficult for parasitic entities to create the fear response they depend upon. Before you sleep, there's a protection ritual that takes less than 3 minutes, but creates a barrier that the Archons cannot easily penetrate. Sit on the edge of your bed and take 3 deep breaths, consciously drawing energy up from the earth through the soles of your feet and down from the heavens through the crown of your head, meeting in your heart center. Then, using your imagination, which is not mere fantasy, but an actual creative force in the subtle dimensions, visualize a sphere of brilliant golden light forming around your entire body. See this light as alive, intelligent, filled with divine consciousness. Speak aloud, even if just in a whisper, these words or something similar in your own language. I am a sovereign being of light. My sleep is sacred. My consciousness is protected. No entity of lower vibration may approach me. I sleep under the protection of the divine source, and I awaken refreshed and strengthened. The spoken word carries vibrational power. The Gnostics called this the logos, the creative force that shapes reality. You're not just hoping for protection, you're declaring it, establishing it as fact in the invisible dimensions. Here's a technique that comes directly from the early Christian mystery schools, preserved in the teachings of Origen and Clement of Alexandria. Before sleep, place your right hand over your heart center and your left hand over your solar plexus. This creates what's called a seal, a specific mudra or hand position that locks your energy field. Hold this position while you visualize the Christ light, or whatever representation of divine consciousness resonates with you, filling your entire being from within. The Archons attack from the outside, but when you're radiating light from your core, they cannot approach. Like darkness that cannot exist where light shines, these entities cannot maintain their form in the presence of activated divine consciousness. If you wake in the night with that familiar feeling of dread or presence, do not give in to fear. This is critical. Fear is their fuel, their doorway, their weapon. Instead, immediately speak a word of power. It can be Christ, Om, I am, or any sacred name that holds meaning for you. The Gnostic texts describe how the initiated soul, when confronted by the Archons in the afterlife journey, speaks the names of power and the entities must flee. This isn't superstition. It's acoustic and vibrational technology. These words carry frequencies that disrupt the Archon's ability to maintain their form in your perceptual field. There's also a breathing technique from the Essene tradition that creates instant protection. If you wake up paralyzed or sensing a presence, focus all your attention on your breath. Don't try to move your body. That will only create more fear when you find you cannot. Instead, consciously slow your breathing, making each exhale longer than each inhale. Count. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. This pattern, known as coherent breathing, immediately shifts your nervous system out of the fear response and re-establishes your sovereignty over your own energy field. Within 3 to 5 breaths, you'll typically find the presence diminishes or vanishes entirely. For those who have experienced repeated attacks and feel a persistent connection to these entities, there's a more intensive clearing process. For 7 consecutive nights before sleep, light a white candle, white specifically, as it represents purification and divine light. Sit before it and speak directly to any entities that may have attached to you. I revoke all contracts, all agreements, all permissions I may have given consciously or unconsciously. You have no authority over me. You have no claim to my energy. I reclaim my sovereignty. Leave now and do not return. Then visualize the candlelight expanding to fill your entire room, burning away any energetic attachments or cords. Salt is another tool that works on the energetic level. The ancient Hebrews used salt in purification rituals for reasons that go beyond symbolism. Salt has a crystalline structure that disrupts negative energy patterns. Place a line of salt across your bedroom threshold, or if that's impractical, put small bowls of salt in the 4 corners of your room. Replace it weekly. This creates what occultists call a boundary, not a physical barrier, but an energetic one that entities of lower vibration cannot easily cross. Your diet also matters more than you might think. The Essenes and early Christians practiced fasting not just for spiritual purification, but because they understood that heavy foods, particularly meat and alcohol, lower your vibration and make you more accessible to lower entities. This doesn't mean you must become vegetarian, but be aware that what you eat before sleep affects your energetic state during sleep. If you've noticed attacks correlating with certain foods or drinks, that's not coincidence. It's cause and effect operating on the subtle level. Finally, and perhaps most powerfully, cultivate awareness during your waking hours. The Archons can only attack those who are spiritually asleep. And spiritual sleep isn't just what happens when you close your eyes at night. It's the unconscious living that most people engage in constantly, moving through life on autopilot, lost in repetitive thoughts, identified completely with ego and emotional reactions. The practice of mindfulness, of present moment awareness, of questioning your thoughts and observing your emotions rather than being consumed by them. This is the ultimate protection. When you're awake spiritually, you remain aware even during physical sleep, and an aware consciousness cannot be violated. Jesus said, "Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation." And that word watch is the key. Stay vigilant, stay conscious. The protective sleeping position, the prayers, the visualizations, the breathing techniques, these are all tools. But the real protection is you, awakened, sovereign, remembering who you truly are beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. You now possess knowledge that was deemed too dangerous for the common believer, wisdom that has been hidden in fragmentary texts and whispered only among initiates for nearly 2,000 years. The sleeping position that Jesus warned against, lying flat on your back with arms extended and palms open, creates a perfect configuration for Archon attacks, transforming your energy body into a receptive vessel for entities that feed on human consciousness. But more importantly, you now know how to protect yourself, how to reclaim the sovereignty over your own being that is your divine birthright. Think about what this means for your life moving forward. Every night, For your entire existence, you've been entering a state of profound vulnerability without even knowing it. How many of your struggles, your unexplained anxieties, your creative blocks, your morning exhaustion despite adequate sleep, how much of this might be traced back to these nocturnal intrusions? The ancient mystics understood that spiritual warfare isn't metaphorical. It's a reality playing out in dimensions most people cannot perceive, affecting every aspect of your waking life. But here's the truth that empowers, rather than frightens. You are not helpless. You are not a victim. The divine spark within you, that fragment of infinite consciousness that the Gnostics called the pneuma, is infinitely more powerful than any archon, any parasitic entity, any force of spiritual darkness. These beings can only affect you when you're unconscious, when you've forgotten what you are. The moment you remember, the moment you awaken, their power over you dissolves like shadows fleeing from the rising sun. Tonight, when you prepare for sleep, you'll do it differently. You'll lie on your right side. You'll seal your energy field. You'll speak your words of protection with the authority of one who knows their own divine nature. And in the morning, pay attention to how you feel. Notice the difference in your dreams, the quality of your rest, the clarity of your mind upon waking. This is empirical spirituality. Test it. Verify it through your own experience. The proof isn't in ancient texts or mystical theories. The proof is in the transformation of your own consciousness. Remember that this knowledge is not just for your own protection. By breaking free from archon influence, by closing the doorways through which they access human consciousness, you're contributing to the awakening of humanity as a whole. These entities maintain their power through the collective unconsciousness of billions of sleeping souls. Every person who wakes up, who takes back their sovereignty, weakens the entire parasitic system. You're not just saving yourself, you're participating in the liberation of human consciousness from forces that have controlled and fed upon it since the beginning of recorded history. Share this knowledge, but share it wisely. Jesus taught in parables for a reason. Some truths are too potent for those who aren't ready, and can create fear rather than empowerment in unprepared minds. But for those who are seeking, who are ready to take responsibility for their own spiritual protection, this information could be the key that unlocks everything. It could be the answer they've been desperately searching for without knowing what question to ask. The war for human consciousness is real, and the battlefield is your own awareness. Every moment of presence, every conscious breath, every time you choose awareness over unconsciousness, these are victories. The Archons want you passive, distracted, afraid, asleep. Your awakening is their defeat. Your sovereignty is their dissolution. Sleep is no longer an unconscious surrender to vulnerability. It can become a sacred practice of protected renewal, a nightly affirmation of your spiritual power. As you move forward from this moment, carry with you this final understanding. The greatest secret they tried to hide wasn't just that the Archons exist, but that you have always had the power to banish them. You are not the vulnerable human struggling in darkness that they want you to believe you are. You are a being of infinite light, temporarily experiencing limitation, gradually remembering your true nature. And with each night of protected sleep, with each day of increasing awareness, you reclaim more of that truth. The journey of awakening has no end, only deeper levels of realization. What you've learned today is a beginning, not a conclusion. Continue to question, to explore, to test these truths against your own experience. The real teachers aren't in ancient texts or YouTube videos. The real teacher is the divine consciousness within you, waiting patiently for you to remember who you've always been. Sleep well tonight, sovereign being of light. You are protected. You are powerful. You are awake.